Hey everybody, this is Phebe Meer, and you are watching Into the Flow podcast.
Cool.
Well, Michael Draper, thank you for joining us today for another great Into the Flow podcast. I like to be super casual and just have a discussion with our guests. But I think one of the first things I wanted to chat with you about is a little bit about your history. We met, I think, officially in Branson, where Sarah and I took your Ocean 1910 class. Great class. I think we might have met you before at one of the previous conventions, but kind of in passing. And so not everyone in our group knows that much about you, about your window cleaning history, and perhaps how you kind of got into the safety field and have become a leader in the safety field. So if you don't mind, share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, no problem. Well, thanks first of all for Into the Flow having me on. I appreciate it. It's an honor. So I just turned 47, and I only say that because I started window cleaning when I was 16 years old. I live in Illinois, and so a buddy of mine who's actually still in the window cleaning industry and around the pressure washing industry today, Andrew Snyder, his dad owned a window cleaning company, and Andy worked for him, and then he asked me to kind of join on some summer stuff. We'd do some route work, do some houses together, and once we both kind of got to the point in the summertime, we'd work for his dad, and then once we graduated, I was going to college, but I was working for his dad then as well. Andy left his dad, and so with his dad's company, what was kind of funny is he had a big route. It was all route work. He cared nothing about commercial work, and he didn't really care much about residential work. And so we were always getting these requests, kids, hey, can you do my house? And so of course we could. And so we'd go out on the weekends and bust out these houses, and was making pretty good money for two punk kids. And so Andy left his dad, and I stayed on with his dad for a while, kind of ran lead. He didn't really have any, levels necessarily, but I had a vehicle and another guy that worked with me, and we ran his routes. Well, then Andy asked me to come up, and he was building a business up in the Quad Cities, which is the Illinois-Iowa border. And Andy asked me to come up and work for him. And so I did. So I left his dad and went up and worked with Andy. And so Andy basically built that from the ground up. And so I watched Andy do it. So I learned a lot about how to put it together. And Andy went after everything. He went after storefronts and residential and commercial work and high-rise work and just anything that had glass he went after. And so I watched him do it. But at that point in time in my life, window cleaning wasn't what I wanted to do. I had other pursuits. I was in college. I was studying law enforcement. And I also had some other business pursuits. I was in the horse business. At one point, I was a professional farrier, a horseshoer I spent 8 years as a professional horseshoer, but was big in the horse business. I had a little mini farm, and I just had some other pursuits. I had real estate, and window cleaning was the furthest thing from my mind. It was cool. We made money at it but it wasn't something I was going to do for my life. So, several things happened. I mean, and honestly, Feb, I had a lot of failures. Going through different business ventures. I failed a couple different times, and the last time I failed, I failed pretty big. I mean, we went bankrupt. And so at that point, after that whole deal happened and some things were happening with me personally, I decided I had to get a job because I had a wife and a young child. And so I started working in the hotel business as a maintenance guy. And I was just always driven. But after that failure, I'll tell you, I was a bit scared. I was a bit scared to venture back out. I had responsibilities now that I just didn't really know if the entrepreneurial thing was what I wanted to do. And I liked the idea of the steady check. So I advanced up, I advanced pretty quickly. I remember walking into my general manager at the time. I was a maintenance technician. I'm making $7 an hour. And I walked into the manager and I said, hey, I said, I don't mean you any disrespect, but I'm going to need your job. And she's like, what? And I said, yeah, I'm going to need your job because I can't, I'm not saying I need yours, but they had a big network of hotels. I said, I've got to be a manager because I can't survive on $7 an hour. So once they took my insurance out, I think my bring home every 2 weeks was maybe $275. And we were living with my wife's grandparents at the time. I mean, we literally were at the bottom. And so, I did. 6 months later, she told me, she says, well, maintenance technician doesn't go from maintenance technician to GM. It doesn't happen in the hotel industry. And I said, I'm going to. And so she said, okay, we'll start working on some desk shifts. And this started getting me acquainted with some other of the operation. Well, 6 months later, I was promoted to GM of a hotel. And so, that what kind of, I was in that industry. What that industry really taught me was P&L management. So you run a whole hotel management is all done off P&Ls. Everything, when your area managers come in, everything is a line item. Everything is, a cost, a percentage cost to the overall cost. And so that's one thing I didn't have. I had a pretty good ability always to see supply and demand. I seen where people needed stuff and I could supply stuff and I could make money, but I wasn't good until that point of really putting those numbers together and where was it going? How was it going out? What was the bottom line and all those things? So that experience in my life, I mean, I never really cared about that. It was a job. It was a means to end up supporting my family, but it taught me a great deal about the management of numbers. And I was, as general manager, I was responsible for the entire operation of the hotel. And then I went into full service, and then I was more of an assistant manager role in full service. And then, my operating costs I was responsible for were rooms and or labor costs on cleaning rooms and all that stuff. So I was watching and became a really good numbers guy. So then, fast forward, I run into a guy at a BNI meeting, and I said to him at one time, I said, I've always had this entrepreneur spirit, but I said, I'm just scared. Now I'm in upper management at a hotel, so I'm pulling down a pretty good salary. But I don't know why, but my mind went back. I had moved at that point to where I'm at now is Bloomington, Illinois. I could see that this was a very service-rich environment, very white-collar environment. State Farm World Headquarters is here. There was 2 hospitals and 2 universities, very, very white-collar. And even in 2008, when everything tanked for everybody, this area wasn't affected. I mean, 401ks looked different to the workers, but other than that, they were bringing home the same amount of money. And so anyway, a guy told me, I'll never forget this. He said, the difference in successful entrepreneurs and your mindset right now? And I said, no. And he says, well, the difference is that they've all failed. Many of them have bankrupted just like yourself, but they've never viewed themselves as a failure, only what they did as a failure. And that hit me. That hit me a lot. And so when after that, I could see the search environment again. I could see the demand, and I knew what I could provide. I'd helped Andrew with his in the Quad Cities, and so I knew what I could do. But again, I have kids at home. I've got a mortgage payment. I've got all these things. So that is the year 2000. So I started out, Thursday was my only day off. And I hated my job, by the way. And my wife hated it too. I was never home. And so Thursdays was my day off. And so I went out and sold. I went out and started selling route work. And I joined a BNI group. And really, it was a grassroots effort. I would sell, and then I took shirts with me. One thing the horseshoeing industry taught me was I always wanted to show up clean, and that's we were taught that in that horseshoeing school was you might have 8 horses at one job, but when you go to the next job, that's the first time that customer sees you. So you show up clean. You bring enough shirts for however many customers you have that day.
Man, I've showed up to some estimates looking really dirty. I need to start bringing some of my own extra shirts. That's a good tip. That's a good tip. How did you know where to go and sell? I mean, did you have the sales experience prior to, or like, did you target your sales efforts? How did you know where to go and sell?
I start on one end of Veterans Boulevard is where everything's at, and I start on one end, and I just went in every single door, and I just started asking. I'm, Mike. I think our company at that time was Twin Cities Window Cleaning. Twin Cities Window Cleaning. I want to give you a bid for your windows whenever you're ready. And I cold called to death. And I still think to this day, route work, that's largely how you're going to be successful at it. That's how you're going to get it, is walk in the door. And the other thing the horseshoeing business taught me was, it was funny. We were the last day of the class, the owner, his name was Reggie Kester. It was down in Ardmore, Oklahoma. And he says, hey, I'm going to teach a business class on Saturday. I know all you guys are done on Friday night, but if you want a little business 101 on Saturday morning, get your stuff, get packed up and be at the classroom at 9:30. So I went down. That was right up my alley, because now I'm like, okay, I can shoe horses. Now, how do I get business? I need to know, how do I get business? And so he brings us in. He goes, now, you guys all got a pen and paper? Yep. And we sit down. I'm so eager to just learn, right? I'm like, okay, yeah, what are we doing? What business 101? He's like, okay, ready? He goes, you need to get up, you need to clean up, you need to show up. Class dismissed.
Oh, nice.
And that didn't make, I was mad at the time. I was like, what the heck? I mean, I sat down here for a business. That's it? What? It didn't hit me till a lot later how much that would apply to window cleaning and the sales efforts, that grassroots effort. So, I mean, we know our industry, and a lot of times there's guys out there that are, the get up all the time, because I'd walk into a place and they're like, yeah, we got a guy, but I ain't seen him in like 3 weeks. So yeah, you can do him. So somebody wasn't getting up. And then I always went in jeans and a polo shirt. I always looked very professional, always. Just try to always, I looked like a cleaner. I wanted to look like somebody that was trying to build a company. And so I would clean up that way. And I wouldn't show up, like I said, if I had an estimate to run, because as I was growing my business and I was selling on my day off, I'd get jobs. And so now Thursday's still only the day I can clean them. And so I'd go clean, and then I would switch shirts, cleaned up in a bathroom or whatever, and hit the streets and go sell. Because that was my job for Thursdays, was to either clean or sell. And so that's what I did. And I remember my first big chain that I got was Panera Breads. And I sat down with the owner. I only had maybe 15 accounts at the time. And I sat down with the owner. We had a meeting. And he says, I've got all these multiple stores in my area. I'm in Bloomington, Illinois, but I'm within 45 minutes of what they call the downstate 5 in Illinois. So there's 5 major metropolitan areas south of Chicago and north of St. Louis. And so he goes, I've got stores in all the areas. Can your company take care of that? And I'm like, absolutely, we can do it. Well, there was no we, there was me. And we got that account. And I was traveling then, because Panera's wanted done at 5 a.m. So I would travel 45 minutes, only had one job. And, people would look at me like, you're an idiot. Why would you drive an hour for one job? And I was like, oh, no, you don't understand. It isn't going to be one job when I get done, because when I go down there, I'm going to sell the rest of the day. And so I'm going to build a route. I'm going to build a route in all 5 of these towns. And that's exactly what I did. And so as a little bit of time went on, residential kicked in for me. And I remember my wife has always been, I wouldn't be anywhere I am today without my wife's support. And I was sitting in front of the hotel I worked at on Veterans Parkway, and I called her. And I said, hon, I just think that, I'm busy now every Thursday, and I really think if I could give this all my effort, I could make this go. And she goes, quit. And I was like, what? She goes, you hate that job anyway, quit. And I was thinking, well, I've got about $5,000 in the bank, and I'm probably good. Well, it wasn't nowhere enough, but failure was not an option. I quit. I called right there. As soon as I have her, I called and said, I'm done. They're like, what do you mean you're done? I said, I am done. Like, are you going to give 2 weeks? I said, nope. I'll consult with you. I'll come in whenever you want if you need something over the next couple of weeks, but I am done. And, I just didn't look back. I knew in 30 days I had a mortgage due. And so I hit the streets, and I had kids at home. I had to sell. And that's what I did. And so we built it, and I had some failures within that. We got to a certain point in 2008, had pretty good. I had about $300,000 in each one of my markets, and I decided, I think I'll franchise. And in Illinois, you could have up to 10 locations, 10 independent locations, without having to make the commitment of franchise. You could operate them under licensing agreements. And so that's what I did. I set up some guys, and I had 4 different guys. I bought a company down in Orlando, Florida, put a guy down there. Well, and everything went well for about 8-9 months. And then the guys that I put in there, it didn't work out. And for whatever reason, they had some personal problems, this and that. It all collapsed. And so in 2010, I think it was 2010, 2011, I took the company back. All the assets remained mine because I had basically just awarded these licensees. But what we had about a $600,000 company. We had lost almost everything down to around $180,000 is where the company sat.
You had taken it. So 2000. It took you about 8 to 10 years to build it up to the 600,000 mark. And
yeah,
that's pretty interesting. Like when you said that first aha entrepreneurial moment hit you, when that gentleman said, the difference between your mindset now, or the difference between your mindset and an entrepreneurial mindset, is viewing an incident separate from who you are, your identity. And then you take then you look at sales. What is sales? It's a constant string of failures, a constant string of doors shutting in your face, but you keep going, and you don't view the door closing as a failure. It sounds a lot like the sales process is like a microcosm of what he was saying, which was, if you're a salesperson and you're going to identify yourself with each door that's closed in your face, then you're going to start seeing yourself as a failure, rather than looking at that one incident or that one situation and learning from it, taking it into consideration and moving on. And so that process of going door to door to build your business up over that 8 to 10 years to that 600,000, I mean, that was entrepreneurship, in motion. That it just struck me the way you described that. I never made the connection between sales and the entrepreneurial mindset. But I interrupted you. You were talking about how you had to start closing the different locations that you had because some of the people that you had in place weren't working out. And I'm just curious to know what were some of the warning signs when you saw that wasn't working out, and the choices you made to then, shut things down?
Yeah. So, well, what we've seen is, I had seen the growth pattern that I was on, and I'll take that back just a minute. So from 2000 to about 2008 is when we rocked that up to about $600,000. And then the whole mindset was, look, if I dedicated a guy in one town, he should be able to go gangbusters, right? Because he can dedicate all of his time, where I was trying to dedicate, a fifth of my time everywhere. And so when we seen 8-9 months go by, we started seeing slippage in sales. And then we started seeing, just the lack of growth and lack of motivation. But it was ultimately some personal problems that a couple owners got themselves into that basically prevented them from going on in the business. And what was ironic is I thought I had it all figured out, right? Because I'm a big slick guy. I got 4 different franchisees going. I'm not really doing a whole lot. I'm collecting a royalty. And that's when I started work for Racenstein. Racenstein had called me and talked to me, Cameron and Steve, and they were like, hey, we're kind of looking for somebody to do some outside sales. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm not doing a whole bunch. And so I started, with them. And well, then in 2010, late 2009, it became very apparent that I was going to have to take everything back over. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do. We hit a point where I'm like, should I just let it go? Should I just let it go down the tubes? Because the owners, we had switched our name by that time to Clearly Windows, and the owners had some debt with Sunbelt Rentals and some others. And I was like, man, it's just not fair to these creditors because they're not going to know the difference, right? I step back in and take it over, but it doesn't matter. They were dealing with Clearly Windows last week, and they've stiffed them on this bill. So we talked about it, my wife and I, a lot, but we decided we would, and we were going to. I went and talked with all those creditors. I said, look, it's not my responsibility. I can walk away from this right now if I want to. You made a deal with that owner, but I said, I'm going to honor all debt with you, but you're going to have to give me a minute. And they're like, okay, how long you thinking? I said, I don't know exactly, but I said, let me keep going. Let's build this back up. I'm putting my personal name on this. Let's go. And so they all agreed, and I did. I paid them all back. So we took took everything back over and made it one big conglomeration again in 2010, about $180,000 in revenues. We sold the company in 2014, and during the time from 2010 and 14, we had grown that company to just under $1 million in revenues. So I brought salespeople on. We went with a mothership type mentality. Okay, yeah, we still have these 5 towns. We're gonna work it from mothership. There's gonna be a central office. We're gonna send guys out, dispatch to, and so we did. And I'd been involved with the IWCA. I was at a couple different IWCA conventions, and I was still at Racenstein. And so I'd made some connections there. And a guy out of Chicago, he come up to me one time. We were talking, and he's like, we should buy you out. We're a regional player. We got companies in St. Louis and Chicago and Indianapolis. You're kind of like right in the middle in our way. And I he said it maybe a couple different years at IWCA, and I just like, shut up, And so finally, it was 2014. It was that January. He come up to me and says, we should just buy you. And I said, why don't you show me what that looks like? And so we met that following week, and we had lunch. And I said, look, I'm not gonna walk away from this without this amount. So just don't even waste my time. I'll enjoy the lunch with you today, but I'm not gonna go through all this rigmarole if we're not talking about this number. And I had all the backing to back. I mean, we had the financials. We had, we were in really good shape. We had created a very nice business. And it was really proven because I was not working in the business full time. I was at Racenstein. And so the business was thriving. I had a general manager, an operations manager, and the business was still making money and profiting. And I was still taking salary out of it besides all of it. So, yeah, they wrote me a nice check. And my thing in the business was, and we talked a lot about this, but I wanted to, I didn't want to stiff anybody. And I talked to that owner. I said, Steve Sullivan's his name with American National Skyline. And I told him, I said, I'm going to see you and you're going to see me. I'm not leaving the industry. I'm going to be here. I said, the last thing I want to do is show up at some event and you're mad at me because I sold you a pig, or you stiffed me because you didn't pay me the last check you owed me. So I said, let's not do that. And I said, I want to be completely honest with you about my financials. And I was involved with the transaction, as normally you are in service business, for a little while. So everything turned out great. I couldn't be happier. They're happy. The business is still thriving. But that's the way I wanted to leave it. I didn't want it, I didn't want to sell it in a tank. Or, I didn't want them looking across the room at me, at a convention, that dirty, rotten Draper, So anyway, in 2014, sold, did very well off of it. It set us up very nice. I was very, very, happy, privileged to be able to have that opportunity.
So once you sold it, how did you start to get, is that when you started getting involved in American Window Cleaning Magazine, or did you go into the safety realm first? Which direction did you go from there?
Well, neither. I was at Racenstein. So that was that became basically a full-time gig. They promoted me up to vice president of sales and marketing. So now I had a pretty real comfortable gig. They were always very, very good to me. And so, I just stayed in that. But Cameron and I used to have these conversations all the time. He's the other owner of Racenstein, and he would always say, I don't know why you're here. I don't know what, I don't know how we keep you year after year. And I said, well, look, at some point I'm going to leave. I don't know what day that is, but I am an entrepreneur. I am going to want to build again at some point. But right now I'm very comfortable. And they were they knew my mindset. They left me alone they didn't manage me like an employee. And it's one of the reasons that it worked for as long as it did. I worked for them for 8 years. It was the longest job I've ever had. So in the middle of that, I was always a subscriber to AWC, and it was quite by fluke. I just picked up a copy of the AWC magazine. I happened to see that Norm put an ad in the magazine that said the magazine's for sale. So I called him up and I said, what are you doing? I said, I've always been a subscriber, but I said, I can tell you're disinterested. It's really kind of went downhill over the last several years. And he says, yeah, I've got my other magazine going. I go, what do you want to do with it? And he's like, well, I just want to get rid of it. I want to sell it. Okay. So, we started negotiating. I'm like, and he's like, well, we have a website, so I'm going to trash it. He's like, well, we got this, all these things he was trying to say when he had assets. I said, I'm going to trash all of it, Norm. I said, we're going to go a completely different direction with it. I said, really, the only thing that's of interest to me is the legacy and the name. And so anyway, we reached an agreement. I bought it, and I'm still at Racenstein, by the way. And so it grew, and we got it flipped around to almost 3 times the revenue that it was doing before when I bought it. And then Racenstein is where I'd always been involved with safety because the IWCA, I was interested in the I-14 standard. We were high-rise guys. We weren't just route and residential guys. We did high-rise work. And so safety was just what we did. We had to be safe. I had a lot of employees that worked for me. Several were family. And so I had cousins that worked for me. And the last thing I wanted ever was to ever have to make a call or have to attend a funeral because of something we did or we were negligent on. And so it just always resonated with me that, we had to be top notch in the safety. We had to do everything we were supposed to do. And at Racenstein, I got to see a little bit of a different side. I got to see more of the equipment side. And, with my position there, I got to talk to different guys that were in the business and sales and this and that. And so started putting some other components together. But it wasn't really until 2017, I guess, when OSHA revamped the general industry standard. And when they did, it took everybody in the industry by surprise. Even the IWCA, the I-14 standard just went down, and then the OSHA they make this new ruling, and everybody's kind of like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Well, my entrepreneur, I seen it. I seen that there was going to be a vacuum, a need,
a market.
Yes, and so. It started on the path at Racenstein. I developed several curriculums for them, and we had developed J. Racenstein University. And so then it wasn't just about safety there. It was about, putting together my knowledge from the window cleaning and pressure washing industries and trying to put these classes together and all that. And, but, as Cameron always said to me at Racenstein, he's like, you're going to leave sometime. You're not going to be here. And we all knew it. We all knew I was going to leave. We just didn't know when. but and there was nothing, I don't have any ill feeling story, but it was time for me to go. And I knew it was at this certain given juncture that we had. And I knew. I talked to my wife about it. She goes, I seen it coming. She goes, I knew. And it really wasn't anything they did. It was just more my entrepreneur was kicking in. It's like, I can't be under this confine anymore. I'm ready to build. And so I had AWC. I left there and immediately started. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, really. I was kind of, I talked to Brandon Vaughn at one time. He looks at my website and he's like, what are you? He goes, you got this and you got this and you got this. He goes, you need to rebrand everything.
Was that 2018?
I think so. Yeah.
Because I think that might've been where we initially crossed paths. Was that one of the conventions that you bumped into him, or?
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, I had been exposed to him from at Softwash Systems, because we were there a lot with Racenstein and that. But yeah, we were on a phone call on that, and he looks in and he's like, man, you just, and he said, he goes, you know what? He goes, all of the pieces are here, Mike. You've got everything to make this fly. Just, you need to revamp, rebrand, and make safety sexy, is what he said. So I said, okay. And and I agreed. I mean, we were pressure washing safety, we were window cleaning safety, we had manuals, we had all this stuff, but we didn't have a good, just way to package it together. And so I sat down, I talked with several people, and I said, we're really a safety consulting company is what we are. We offer trainings and we offer this, but we're really a safety consulting company. And so our image needs to be, I wanted a more formal image. And I told the people that were developing, I said, think law firm, but fun, but that's the authority that we need to have. And so that's when we developed Expert Safety Services and the badge and all that stuff. And I wasn't wrong about the demand. There's been a high demand for what we've done and what we do. I'm amazed that I guess, I don't know. I am and I'm not. I'm grateful, I guess. But we just continue to try to take it to the nth level. Wherever I'm at today, if you're talking to me today, I'm already working 6 months out. What is happening today is been done for a while. And we're getting ready to launch what we call our safety advocate program tomorrow, actually. That's been in the works since January.
I saw that post about that. Yeah, I'd be curious to know more about that.
Yeah. And so it's just, I'm always looking ahead. I've always had a fascination with technology. And I think our industry has been slow to embrace technology in certain things. And, but yeah, I mean, that's how we got here. That's the story. That's where it's at. And so today, I have AWC and Expert Safety Services, and both of them are doing very well. Around was it August? It might have been August, maybe September of 2019. I remember asking you on Instant Messenger a safety question. I don't know what it was. I just sent you a message, and you're like, "Hey, I'm actually in Dallas. Let's get together." And we were cleaning a building relatively close to downtown off of 75. And we invited you over to come check out the site, and we took some pictures, and then you put some of our pictures in the AWC Magazine, which was really exciting for us. You were down to help inspect anchors, right? Is that what you were doing? Yes, we did some load testing and inspecting of anchors down there on a pretty big complex. And that's part of what we're gotten into with safety. And so really, my attitude with safety, especially since I know the industry, right? I know the window cleaners, and the kind of the unique thing that I think is hard to find is to find a guy, and I'm not just saying this just to toot my horn, but it's just, I've seen this, is you got a guy that understands how to do it, how to do the work. And I've done the work, I've built the business. I was in the distributor side of it, so I know how all the manufacturers think. I know their play, I know their mentality. And then also, so really what I always say with the safety is we're involved with you from the engineered component on the building to the equipment to the guy over, right?
Yeah.
And so all of it, we have a really good working knowledge of it. And so we just use that knowledge to leverage ourselves.
I think that's what Sarah and I really found valuable in the class that you taught in Branson. I used to work for a local municipal water department, and I was in charge of implementing the environmental health and safety program at a local water treatment plant. And I remember taking the various OSHA classes, and they were it always seemed like they were very generic, and they tried to cover the breadth of the whole entire safety realm, where when we took your class, it was very, very specific to our industry, to pressure washers, window cleaners, gutter cleaning. I mean, that's what I found very valuable. It was cutting to the chase, getting to the real meat of what we need to know as business owners to prepare a safe work environment for our team members out in the field. And so we also signed up for the Safety Expert Program online, and we've since had one or two of our technicians take the class. And it's always a great thing to have on those rainy days, or for when they first start your employee onboarding program, you can just send them to the website, get the good training, and then also we have access to a lot of great deals on safety equipment. But I was curious, while you're here, if you want to share some information about the Safety Advocate Program. We're not actually live right now. This is going to be, we're going to send this to one of our moderators, and he's going to he's going to work on the video, and then we're going to release it on Into the Flow. But did you want to share some information about the Safety Advocate program?
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm always challenged to just make things better, right? And we were doing these classes, and I was really struggling because OSHA, their mentality really is from, where they're coming from a lot of times is a construction site, right? It's a fixed place. People are reporting there every day. And so there's this safety guy of some nature that walks around and makes sure that everything's okay, or you report to him or whatever it is, right? So we're mobile contractors. It's not the same. And we're sending out people, we're basically 2 men in a truck. That's our whole model, right? Is you get enough business, you put 2 guys in the truck, they go out, they work for 8 hours, and they come back with their truck. And so for me, there was a couple problems. One was that I would go out and do classes, and maybe you would have your employee in the class, and then I would leave Dallas. And then somebody would come and they'd say, "Hey, I just hired a guy. When are you going to be in Dallas?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, just in Dallas." "Well, what are we going to do for my guy? About my new hire, what am I going to do? Because OSHA's saying, I got to have it done before he goes out in the field." And so I just had a quandary there. I'm going to shut this blind just a second. Much better. So that was a problem. And then also we would see things from OSHA like, "Hey, if you got a guy in a harness, he needs to inspect it daily." And we're like, okay, well, I mean, and then they would throw things at you like, if it's not documented, it's not done. And okay, so now I'm in this mobile contractor world. I send 2 guys out. They decide they got to get on a roof, so they pull their harness out of the truck. They're supposed to do it before. We're hoping that they do, but the employer really doesn't know, and it's not documented, of course. So what do we do? And that we would try, here's your inspection sheet. You need to send this out with the guys. And it was blah, blah, blah. It's never going to work. So again, we're just, looking at how do we make this better and how do we involve technology? So I had I had built the JHA app, right? We were building job hazard analysis for guys, and so we had this app, and we had this dashboard that you're talking about in the safety advocate program. And so I had talked to my guy that's the techie, Raphael, and I said, we need to make those two things talk. So the app and the dashboard, if I could have two-way communication between those two, I can solve some problems in the industry.
The owners can get a sense of what's going on in the field. Yeah.
Correct. So that's what we did. And like I said, we worked on this for 6 months, but we've got it released. It's actually up now. We're just kind of not talking about it yet, but by the time this goes, it will be up and rolling. But so basically what'll happen is we've put all the inspection sheets, like the PPE inspection sheets we've put in there. What an owner can do is say, hey, Bob's going out today. He's going to be using a ladder, a harness, a rope, or this and this and this. You just send the checklist to him. He gets out there. It's in the assignments on his app. He hits, he goes through the questionnaire real quick, and it automatically goes back to the dashboard. So you as the owner now can kind of get a visualization of safety of what's going on in the field. They can create JHAs and send them back. They can, weekly safety meetings is a big thing. Yes. We were running into a thing where these guys are mobile. They don't even come into the shops. They take a truck home and they go work. So how do you do a safety meeting without costing the owner a lot of money? We videoed all of our safety meetings. And so now in the dashboard, you just say, hey, crew, you can hit assign crew. Your whole crew's in there. Bam. Guess where it shows up? In their assignments on their app. And now they can't cheat. They have to watch it in full or it doesn't come back to you, right? And nice. And then once they've seen it, now in your dashboard. So I just think back when I was the owner, I thought, safety was big because, like I said, I had a lot of people that, and even if they weren't my family, they were my family because they worked for me. I didn't want to make any calls that somebody didn't come home today, but I could never see. I mean, I did all I could as an owner to train. I did all I could as an owner to, take guys to conventions and give them the expertise that they needed, but I didn't know that they were doing it in the field. And look, the app isn't going to make sure they could fake everything through, right? But at least as an owner, we can kind of get a grasp that we did everything we could. If a guy decides he's not going to do a harness inspection, he's going to fake through it, and he needs it and it breaks because he didn't do his inspection or whatever, then I'm going to be able to live with that a little easier than if I didn't have anything.
Right. I mean, you can go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what we did. And so all of the trainings that you were talking about, they're on there as well and can be assigned through the app now. The daily checklists are there. The app has always contained the JHA application where a guy can create a JHA. Once he does, it automatically comes to the owner. SDS sheets are another big issue. You got to put this log together, got to do this. No, it's all in the app now. All the industry SDS sheets are there. And then there's going to be a lot of other resources. So what we've done is we've moved this now to, we were doing an annual subscription, and then you get to pay for each class. Well, the way this is going to work now is it's unlimited. You get everything. Unlimited JHAs, unlimited trainings, unlimited certificates. It's $59 a month to stay involved in the program. All of our safety manuals, they're going to be in the program. Weekly safety meetings, like I said, all that, everything we're going to keep we're only going to have one product, narrow and deep, one product. And that's going to be the Safety Advocate product. And you're either in or you're out.
So, I like that because I can't tell you how many times, I mean, it's like the old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And I can't tell you how many times I've told my technicians, I've corrected their ladder angles. I've asked them I prefer you not be on the roof when you're gutter cleaning. But when I show up to a job site, guess where they are? They're on a ladder. They're on the roof somewhere. And as an owner, you do start to care about your team as if they're your own family. You get to know their wife, you get to know their kids, you get to know when those birthdays are and holidays. And so it's really hard to separate yourself from their personal lives. And an app like this, is really going to help, at least from the owner's perspective. You're taking that horse as close to the water as you possibly can, and you're documenting it every step of the way. And
Right.
and if I've learned anything from my experience with the municipal water treatment plant, it's you really have to reinforce these things on a daily basis. You can't just train somebody once, expect them to absorb it. It's going to come with this daily job hazard analysis. It's going to come with this daily inspection checklist. It's going to come with repetition, repetition, repetition until they internalize it. And pretty soon it becomes a part of how they work, how they do the job. And I think that I'm super excited to get involved in this program because, it's the exact connection that I needed. Right now, I still have to send a technician to to do the class, but it's going to be so much more convenient. He's already on his phone. She's already on her phone to just go and get this handled. And I'm going to get the feedback as the owner. So that's going to be pretty cool. I'm excited. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I am too. It's like I said, it's taken a ton of work. It took a ton of coding, work, and that's not my gig at all. So that Raphael takes care of all that. But yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. I don't know anything else that exists like it, and we're excited about it. I'm really excited about it.
So one of the questions I try to prepare for these interviews, these discussions. I like to call them discussions because I don't like quite to commit to like grilling somebody with a bunch of questions. One of the questions that I had, that Sarah actually had suggested was, what do you do when OSHA's on your work site? And I'm thinking, well, you might want to go ahead and be a safety advocate and have this program ready, because that's what you're going to need when OSHA shows up on the on the job site.
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, everybody paints OSHA as the enemy, and chances are, if they're on your job site, you've already, something's not right. Especially in the mobile contractor world, it's not like they're just walking around on sidewalks in a residential area to see you. They've seen something, or somebody's called them. So it's like the police officer. The worst thing you want to do is start lying. Because they're trained. I mean, they know within a few questions. I always say in our class, they're going to ask some questions to the guys or whatever they're there, and they're going to determine relatively quickly whether there's been training or whether the best foot's been put forward. And so, yeah, if you've got the things in place, if you, as there's really two parts. There's the employee, as you're talking about, there's the employee responsibility, and then the employer responsibility. If the employer's done his job, if he's planned the work, if he's provided the necessary equipment and the training that they need, things are going to probably go pretty well, is what I've seen. If they haven't, they see through it really quick, and they know that this isn't it's not right, and there's not training here, and they cite. So, yeah. But I wouldn't try to. A lot of times being cooperative, and I've been in several of these OSHA mitigations over the last couple of years now, where you face the facts. Where are we at? What can we do better? How would you suggest we did this? That type of attitude gets you a lot further than well, screw OSHA, I'm not going to listen to them, or you don't have no business telling me what to do. That type of attitude does never work out well.
And I remember from our 1910 class and from some of my previous classes, some of the teachers that I've had in the past have always said that just about every OSHA regulation is written in blood in some form or fashion. That regulation was written because somebody had a really horrible accident that either ended them up in the hospital, or they ended up dying, and oftentimes many times over. And so these regulations aren't just there because somebody's in an office somewhere dreaming up the best way to piss us off. They're written in blood, unfortunately. And I imagine that's probably why the industry transitioned from that old standard that you were used to the new standard that you have then started to train people on and build this program on, where you saw the need and then you filled the need. I just think that a lot of people take that attitude like, oh, this is just another regulatory agency coming onto the job site trying to get money and tell me what to do. I mean, yes, every agency does need to fund itself at some point, but that's not, they're there to really help keep people safe.
Yeah. And, my response, I mean, not my responsibility, but my take on this, I'm a religious person, and I believe that we have a responsibility to respect life. and so our creator gave us life, and we have a responsibility to respect life, and we don't take it for granted. And so, that's really the take, and my values are coming from, is the fact that this is a little higher than just an OSHA. I could care less about OSHA at the end of the day. A very powerful seminar that I seen one time was that this guy goes around, he does what's called a next of kin seminar. And basically what he does, he takes this group of people, and they're watching him explain to the next of kin how Johnny's not coming home because they didn't set the ladder correctly, or they didn't do this, or they didn't do that.
That's powerful.
It's powerful. It's very powerful. And the thing is that so many emotions roll, right? You, in this thing, you start to see, well, blame starts to happen immediately. Why didn't you, as an employer, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you take your, and then you start to see the other sides of things. But it's a very powerful and moving thing. And for me, that's what it's all about. OSHA citation, I mean, nobody wants them, but that's easy. That we can deal with that. We can borrow money. We do whatever. We can deal with that. It's very difficult to deal with loss of life. And Fab, unfortunately, in our industry, I mean, I've experienced, I know guys in our industry that are dead. I know guys that are in wheelchairs. I know guys that have been in comas. I know guys that have fallen off ladders. And nobody left that day thinking, I think I'll be stupid today and not come home, or I'll be in a coma. Nobody left the house that way. They left the house thinking, they're invincible. I've done this 20 times, and it's just not the case. And so that's really where I try to bring it from. It's really just a respect of life. And certainly when we're dealing with others, because I get guys all the time say, I'll do what I want to do. Yeah, you know what? That's your God-given right, right? There may be consequences, but that's your God-given right to do whatever you want to do. But when you involve employees, when you start saying, now I want you to go do that, that is no longer your right. Right. And that's where OSHA comes in. That's OSHA's play, right? They govern the employee-employer relationship. And so, that's the passion. That's what we hope to prevent, is anybody. And unfortunately, we've had deaths. We've had deaths every year I've been doing this now in safety. In our industry, we've had deaths, and
yeah,
it's unfortunate.
There was so I've got a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap everything up. But I wanted to. So one thing that stood out to me from the training back in Branson was the water-fed pole. How the water-fed pole has become an answer to working on the ladder, and I was kind of shocked to learn that during the interval of time surrounding that particular training class at that time, more people had been injured and or killed with the water-fed pole because they weren't doing their JHAs, and they weren't looking at potential electrical lines. And they think that if they're working a certain distance away from the electrical line, they're going to be safe. And so that's kind of opened up a whole new safety challenge. And I'm just curious to hear from you, where do you see this safety industry going in the next 2 or 3 years? Where do you, for window cleaners, water-fed polers, pressure washers, where do you see the industry going in the coming years? Well,
I hope that, and I do genuinely feel that in the last, and I'm not just bragging this, there's other safety trainers out there, IWCA's out there, Jeff Scott's out there, there's other guys that are doing what I'm doing. I think we have made an impact. I think that continuing to educate the industry, I know that the IWCA can prove that, through the years, statistically, there was less accidents, less deaths in our industry. I hope that, I mean, this is why I'm doing this, is to be able to look back in 2 years and say, we made an impact. We saved lives. We changed the thinking of some. We affected that. And, that's my hope. And I think we will. I mean, everybody that comes through our classes, they get it, and they don't go out necessarily and do it perfect after the class, but there's at least an awareness, right? Now they're thinking about things a little bit better. I'm hoping that the manufacturers continue to respond in the next 2 or 3 years. I think waterfed safety, I'll give kudos to Tucker on this one, because they're really the first ones to put third-party testing to their voltage on their base section. I think there's more to do, and I think all the manufacturers should be responding. But often things are about money and marketing and all this stuff. But there needs to be a full court press on electrical hazards within the water-fed industry, and I hope they respond. I hope they do the right thing. Several of them have the components, and they've even got the knowledge. They're using materials that they think are non-conducting, but they're not going to the next step and getting the third-party testing done. And see, that's right. What OSHA says. If you're going to state that it's an insulated tube, then it has to have the third-party testing. So they're stopping. They're stopping short. And so I'd love to see the manufacturer step up to the plate and take a full swing at that. Tucker did with the base section, and I give him kudos. But there's more things that could be done. And I hope too that OSHA with the 1910, they left some things abstract, and it's caused some confusion in the industry, specifically with high rise. They put some wording in 1910 and didn't define it, and it's caused some to just say, well, we can not listen to any of this because we're this, and it's bogus. But it needs to be clarified, and I put it on OSHA because the PWNA and the IWCA has had letters into OSHA asking for a response, asking for clarification, asking for definition for coming up 2 years now. Mm-hmm. And OSHA still remains silent on the issue and not responding. And so, that's one of the things I hope to look back on in a couple of years and say, yeah, thank you, OSHA, for finally doing what you should have done on that in the first place.
And as a numbers guy, I mean, I do believe that 2 years, a year from now, 2 years from now, you're going to see the difference that you have made. And I think that that's why I like the term safety advocate. Like, you've just described a situation where our industry is actually trying to drag OSHA up and try to pick OSHA up so that it better serves the industry. And I think that's pretty cool. I always thought that OSHA and the industry would benefit greatly by working together, and this type of advocacy program that you're building is really going to help. I mean, you've got, like you said, IWCA, PWNA, they're already looking at the standards saying, hey, maybe we could look at this together and we can resolve this issue together.
Right. That's the thing. But right now the ball is really in OSHA's court. They're the only ones that can define. They've written themselves into a little bit of a quandary, and I understand why the process is slow, because they messed up. But and it's going to take a little backtracking to get back out of that. But at any rate, it will make for a safer industry if they do. And ultimately, I don't really care. Those guys that are savvy to high rise, they're going to know what issue I'm talking about. I really don't care which way it comes down. Well, let's just get everybody on the same page so that there's one set of rules, and that's the way you promote safety. If you have one guy operating one way and one guy operating another, and this guy over here can negate the things that have been put in place to make a safer industry, then safety doesn't work, right? We have to have the clear-cut direction, and I think we'll get there. I hope so. I'm going to continue. I love this I don't see myself going anywhere out of safety. And I'm going to continue to push. I'm the director of safety now for the PWNA, and I'm going to be continuing to push these issues, as long as I can. So.
Well, that's awesome. So before we conclude this discussion, I just wanted to ask you one question. If you could go back to an early version of yourself, Michael Draper, what kind of advice would you give yourself? What kind of advice if you knew this, had this information back then, what would that look like today?
I think, through the years, personal development and that there was sometimes I grew up I grew up in business, if you will, under management that was very intolerant. It was just like, we're the manager, you do what I say, and you don't like what you yell and scream and all this stuff. And as clearly started to develop towards the end of the years, you could just tell that mindset had changed. And I'd look back on a younger me and say, be more patient. Don't be so quick. I was really quick to make decisions, and sometimes they were uncalculated. I would just do it. And so I'm definitely a much more patient person now, and that's what I would tell a younger me is be patient, a little more calculated, and maybe not have made some of the mistakes I did.
That sounds like great advice to me. I think that I might have to say something similar to myself. But Michael Draper, I really appreciate you taking the time to visit Into the Flow and share your expertise and your story with us. And I'm looking forward to signing up for that safety advocacy program and helping to make my team a safer team. So I'm really excited about it. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday with your family. And I'm looking forward to our next meeting, whenever that happens to be.
Thanks, Bob. I really appreciate it. And it was my pleasure to be on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye.